Thank you both so much for being here. We are ready to get started. For those of you just tuning in, this forum is hosted by the Associated Students of Western Washington University's Office of Civic Engagement. Our goal is to activate students towards becoming informed and involved participants in the political system. For everyone here live, you can submit additional questions that you may have for the candidates, and they can be answered at the end of this segment. Simply find and click the Q&A button in your options bar to submit a question. So this segment, we'll be speaking with the Whatcom County Public Utilities Commissioner District 1 candidates. We'll be speaking with candidates Christine Grant and Jeff McClure. So thank you both so much for being here. We're going to start off by giving you time for a short introduction, starting with Ms. Grant. Ms. Grant, you've got 60 seconds and you can start when you're ready.
Okay. So my name is Christine Grant, and I'm a candidate for a 6-year term as a PUD commissioner. I decided to run for this position to give voters a choice between the current status quo and a new direction that's more responsive to 21st challenges, leadership that considers environment and equity in every decision, and policy that reflects industry best practices. I have spent my entire career working with utilities across the country, including PUDs, and I have a track record for getting big stuff done. So over the last roughly 10 years, I've helped bring in $25 million of competitive funding for clean energy projects, and I helped create and implement one of the region's largest green jobs initiatives. I'm also on faculty here at Western, where I teach energy policy with the Institute for Energy Studies. And just want to remind viewers that the PUD is your public utility. And I want to see more public benefits for all of us, including building public fiber internet infrastructure like the 15 other PUDs that have already started. I've been endorsed by the Washington Conservation Voters, local labor unions, and many others. Thanks. Sorry, I can't see the timer.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I actually was going to ask, are you viewing all of the participants? You might have to press the little blue arrow to scooch over and be able to see my timer screen.
Okay, I'll see if it works when Jeff goes.
If it's easier for you, I can put up a finger at 30 seconds if you would like.
Okay.
Countdown.
Can I ask?
That might help.
All right, great.
Can you hear me? All I can see is the timer screen, but I can't see anything else.
Okay. You might need to go to the top left corner or top right corner and click view. And you might be able to see some different options from that drop-down menu there.
Can you see me? Can you see me?
I can see you, and the audience can see whoever is speaking.
Okay, I'm operating on an iPad, so the prompts are a little bit different here. So
gotcha. Okay.
I guess what we'll do is I'll just keep an eye on the time clock.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so you can go ahead with your 1-minute introduction, and I'll start the timer when you start.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jeff McClure. Pleased to be here with you today. A little bit about myself. My wife and I moved to Whatcom County about 40 years ago. Immediately got involved in civic life on a number of boards, but also established my architectural practice in downtown Bellingham. My 17-member firm, RMC Architects, is involved in all manner of community-related projects for both the public and private sector, including affordable housing, healthcare, education, historic preservation, and sustainable design. One of the projects we recently completed on the Western campus is the Ethnic Student Center. I've overseen hundreds of millions of dollars in design and construction throughout my career. And I've been a job creator and a business owner that's weathered many economic cycles. I've been involved in the PUD for a number of years during a period of major upgrades, over $50 million in upgrades, and now we're poised to take on some of the biggest challenges confronting our community, including extension of broadband, protection of water rights, investments in renewable energy, and jobs.
Excellent. Thank you both. All right, let's move on to the questions. You will each have 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer these, just resetting my timer. So our first question, what is your position on managing water resources within Whatcom County? Mr. McClure, you can go first.
It's a big question, difficult to answer in 90 seconds, but of course the primary source of water is the Nooksack River and its tributaries, including subsurface water. So we have plenty of water during most of the year, but during the low flows in July through September is when there's this nexus between fishing and farming, when they both need water. PUD can be a big solution provider. We hold a large senior water right in the basin, and we currently use about 1/3 of that water right for jobs in irrigation, which means that we have a large portion of our water right we can use solving some of these big problems within the basin. Those solutions include water for agriculture. It's estimated that 50% of the farming uses in the county may not have a legal water right. We can also look for opportunities and have done a comprehensive study on where water storage could occur, places where we can store water in the big times of the year when we have plenty of flow in the Nooksack River and save that for the low flow times. And water banking, of course, is something that we could be involved in as well. PUD has been a leader in many of these things. Small water associations partnering with Nooksack, salmon enhancement and habitat mitigation. And we intend to continue to play a significant role as we move forward in these water discussions in the county.
Fantastic. Ms. Grant, you can go ahead.
Great. Yeah. So, you know, fresh water is a really precious resource. And I think it's worth it to consider that only 3% of the Earth's water is fresh. And most of that water is unavailable because it's locked up in glaciers, or it's too polluted, or it's too far under the Earth's surface. So only about 0.5% of the Earth's water is available fresh water. And we know that climate change is going to make droughts more intense and increase the need for irrigation in the summer months. And, you know, already in Whatcom County, 70% of the water that we use in the summer is for irrigation. And so, you know, we need to be really careful and deliberate about decisions related to how we use water and really think about how the choices we make today will impact future generations. Yes, the PUD has a large and senior water right on the Nooksack, and that is a resource that everyone should benefit from to the extent possible, and it impacts, you know, our economy and our environment. And so, you know, one of the key things when it comes to water rights is that I really think we need to be working towards a solution where we're all playing by the same rules. And I'll get into more of that in the questions after this. But, you know, we also need to reevaluate some of the water law that we have in our state as well, so it reflects 21st century challenges.
Excellent. Was that helpful with my cues for the
You know what? I can see the timer now.
Okay, great. Perfect. Excellent.
So you don't have to do that. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right. So our next question, and Ms. Grant, you will go first on this one.
Okay.
How do you plan on meeting the water interests of both the Lummi and Nooksack tribes and the local farming communities?
Yes. So the Lummi Nation and the Nooksack Indian tribe have lived here since time immemorial. They are the first water users in the Nooksack watershed. And as a result, they have the most senior water rights. You know, and then part of their tribal treaty rights that they have include having enough water in streams to support fish habitat in order to protect their right to fish. And so, you know, I think that it's really important to remember that our ancestors signed the Point Elliott Treaty in 1855. It's a a promise that we made between two sovereign nations, and those promises are important as and legally binding as the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And so you know, that's really important. That said, farming is also an incredibly important part of our heritage, our identity as a community, and our economy. What's challenging right now is that unpermitted agricultural water use is, you know, there's a lot of non-compliance with state law right now. There's different estimates for how many farmers are, you know, drawing water in a way that doesn't comply with state law. But, you know, I want to give farmers certainty about their water use by helping get PUD water to the farmers that need it. And there's a lot of different ways that we're going to need to look at this. And it's really hard to get into all the details in 90 seconds, but lots of legal, the adjudication process that's coming up is going to be a big part of the solution.
Thank you. Mr. McClure, go ahead.
Ms. Grant just mentioned the adjudication process. This is something that has been brought forward by the Department of Ecology at the behest of the Lummi and Nooksack tribes. We, of course, need to live up to the agreements that were made back in 1855, the Point Elliott Agreement. And as I mentioned in the previous question, the PUD can provide solutions. But the adjudication process is very complex and costly. What that basically means is every water right or perceived water right in the basin would be hammered out in a court of law. The Yakima Basin just completed this process. It took 30 years and hundreds of millions of dollars in legal fees in order to complete it. And at the end of the day, it frayed relationships, maybe provided some certainty, but it didn't get water where water was needed. I am proposing, the PUD is proposing to avoid the adjudication process if possible and look for proactive solutions. We've worked cooperatively with the tribes in the county and the city of Bellingham in our membership on the Watershed Management Board. And I am proposing that we continue to work in that capacity to find those solutions because we all really want the same thing: equitable distribution of water, support of a healthy ecosystem for fish, sustainable water levels, and clean water. And I would much rather spend hundreds of millions of dollars on solutions than in legal fees, if at all possible.
Thank you both. All right. Our next question. How do you see the PUD's interests intersecting with Cherry Point's interests? Mr. McClure, you can go ahead and start us out on this one.
Thank you. The future of industry is changing, and you know, that's evidenced by the recent closure of Alcoa and Talco Works and the loss of 750 jobs, where even tremendously cheap power could not keep this industry in business. Another example of this change is BP and their new leadership, having created these 10 new sustainability initiatives, 5 of which are corporate and 5 are worldwide, to help them transition to a cleaner energy future. It's a very exciting time. The PUD is partnering with industry to speed this pace of transition, to remove hydrocarbons in the atmosphere and prepare for this cleaner energy future. One example of this is we're working right now negotiation on construction of a utility scale solar project at Cherry Point, which could provide as much as 60 megawatts of power, provide clean energy to help offset hydrocarbons in the industries at Cherry Point, and perhaps green direct power to residential users here. Our part of that would be to develop the infrastructure that would connect that power to the grid. Another is a clean energy industrial park. Why is it always a discussion of jobs versus the environment? We should be able to have both. We're talking with the port about developing 200 to 300 acres in a clean energy industrial park to attract the next generation of manufacturing in the support of well-paid jobs in our community.
Ms. Grant, go ahead.
Yeah, so, I think creating and maintaining jobs at Cherry Point is critical. We need more family wage, union, clean energy jobs. And I am committed to helping build those jobs. As I said before, I helped develop one of our region's largest green jobs programs. I think in order to continue creating next generation jobs, we need to have good infrastructure. And so it's been interesting to me to talk to leaders at Cherry Point Industries that talk about how bad their internet is. These are some of the key customers of the PUD. And, I feel that the PUD should have been building fiber optic internet out to Cherry Point, a decade or more ago. So we need to, prioritize bringing that infrastructure there. The PUD is the largest processor of water in Whatcom County, moving about 17 million gallons of water a day, much of that to Cherry Point. Other electric utilities are putting water turbines in their water pipes to generate renewable energy in a way that, creates hydropower without harming ecosystems. Through my work at Western, I'm connected with a lot of people that are working on cutting edge clean energy projects with industry. Currently I'm looking at putting a study mission to Scandinavia together with key players in Whatcom County to learn about these cutting edge clean energy industries. So lots of opportunity at Cherry Point with the PUD.
Excellent, thank you both. All right, our next question. What is your vision for the future of internet access in Whatcom County, and how would you use your position to support that? Ms. Grant, you can start us off.
Yeah, so, I've engaged with thousands of Whatcom County residents during this campaign, and people are so frustrated with the poor quality of internet services available to them. So 15 other PUDs offer open access fiber optic internet infrastructure to their communities, and many of them are offering last mile solutions. Our PUD didn't engage on this for a long time. I think that decision has hurt Whatcom families and businesses. There's a tremendous number of grants available right now to help with planning and to build infrastructure. One thing that everyone should know is that many other developed countries have already moved significantly towards fiber optic internet infrastructure or have plans to move there. And this is really important because our bandwidth needs are doubling every 12 to 18 months. And so we need infrastructure that's going to allow for that growth, to help attract industries, to allow people to do tech jobs from home so that our kids get the education they need. So we've got to apply for those grants, and we have to use the financing tools that many other PUDs are already using, local utility districts and working with community development financial institutions to help finance this investment that pays for itself over time. So it'll be my top priority as a PUD commissioner.
Thank you. Mr. McClure, your response.
In the 1930s, there was a big discussion about rural electrification, and electricity was no longer a luxury. It was a necessity for modern life. This couldn't be more true of broadband. It's a matter, and this goes beyond to a matter of social equity, not only for distance learning, for telehealth, for public safety, and many, many other initiatives that require digital access. 2 years ago, the PUD and the port entered into an agreement to develop a fiber optic backbone throughout Whatcom County to reach the most remote accesses of the county. This is a 3-phase project. The plan involves 3 phases and would provide open access to internet service providers in a true public-private partnership. So we are moving forward with this. It's made even more apparent of how critically important this is during this the past few months and are on this path. The status of the project is that engineering has begun with implementation for the first phase within the first half of next year. Some of this has been slowed down because of the pandemic, because the energy that was going into the implementation of this was put into providing digital hotspots to support school-age children. But we also have new technology advances like Starlink and SpaceX with a network of point-to-point access with satellites that needs to be integrated into our understanding of what this fiber optic backbone wants to be. It's a rapidly developing industry, and it deserves time to be able to incorporate these changes and opportunities.
Thank you. So we're on to our final question. How do you see structural inequities influencing public utilities, and what will you do to address these inequities? Mr. McClure, you can go ahead and start this one.
This is a really good question. It's one that I'm sure caused us both to give plenty of consideration. It highlights some of my priorities in my campaign. We've already talked generously about digital access. And as we said, it's a necessity for modern life, and access and affordability are key to this initiative, and it's a high priority for me. The fair appropriation of water, I think, is another issue that is tremendously important. We need to recognize treaty rights and our responsibilities to uphold the negotiations and the agreements previous generations have made, because in doing so, we are caring for future generations. And I think we all can agree that this is tremendously important. Climate change is another issue that I think is important for us as a PUD to be active in, even though we can't impact the events of the entire world. We can all do our part, and it's going to require that in order to make an impact on this, because climate change is impacting the most fragile economies around the world, and private property rights that we celebrate here in the US and developed world can't trump the sustainability of our planet. And one thing that maybe has not gotten as much attention is access to opportunity, and the opportunity for people to be able to engage in well-paid jobs. We as an entity, although PUDs are not often thought of as economic development engines, can certainly play a large role in that aspect as well. These are my main priorities.
Thank you. Ms. Grant?
Yeah, so as I talked about before, our tribal communities have some really strong concerns about the historical disregard for tribal treaty rights. And, although I am not necessary, so we really need to make sure that we honor them in all of the discussions that we're having about water rights and this discussion related to adjudication. And if we are able to negotiate another pathway that doesn't involve adjudication, we need to make sure that we stop delaying addressing their tribal treaty rights. PUD commissioners also play a strong role in state energy policy. And the state association, WAPUDA, that represents PUDs, has recently come out in opposition to equity portions of a new state law related to the transition to clean energy. And so as a PUD commissioner, I would want to play a strong role in that state level policy to make sure that we're addressing climate change in a way that really does consider equity. I am the only candidate with a wide range of union endorsements. I believe that as we transition our economy to a lower carbon economy, we need to do that in a just way that focuses on workers. I'll continue talking in my closing because I'm out of time.
All right, thank you both. We have 3 minutes left, and we did have a Q&A from the audience, and maybe we can do just kind of like a little bit of a closing statement mixed in with this question. So we'll start with Mr. McClure, and you will have 90 seconds. And go ahead and give us a closing statement, and also add in where you believe you have room to grow.
So I just wanted to mention that the PUD today is vastly different than the one I joined, and I'm pleased to have led in that transformation. As I mentioned, when I first joined, we were on the cusp of a massive modernization of our critical water infrastructure. After that, after we had accomplished that, after 10 years and investing $50 million without spending $1 of taxpayer money, we devised a strategic plan to take on some of these bigger initiatives, including extending fiber optic backbone, assisting industry along the path to a cleaner energy future, our continuing leadership in water resource planning, and providing increased support of well-paid jobs. I'm a candidate with a demonstrated track record for taking big ideas and turning them into reality, and I'm pleased to be endorsed by over 90 people throughout the community from across the political spectrum, including elected community and business leaders. Having said that, and given my vast experience on the PUD and in private industry, there's always room to grow. These technologies that we're talking about today are tremendously sophisticated and changing all the time, and increasing my understanding not only of broadband technology, but water rights planning. The role of a PUD commissioner is many faceted, and you need to wear many hats. And you wind up needing to be able to depend upon your staff and the quality of your staff to provide good information. But it's always an education process.
Thank you. Ms. Grant, same question.
Yeah, so our PUD commission provides the policy direction for our PUD, and I am uniquely qualified to be a PUD commissioner because I have spent my career advising utilities, public and private utilities, including PUDs. And so, you know, our country and our community is facing enormous and complex challenges. And I think many people feel frustrated because they want public institutions that are more responsive to the challenges of the 21st century. And so, as I said before, you know, I offer Whatcom voters an alternative to the status quo. One point that I was going to make in the previous question was that in the 83-year history of our PUD, we have never had a female PUD commissioner. And, you know, I don't think we can make good public policy when half of our population isn't represented. And research also shows that diverse leadership teams make better policy. And so, you know, I am running to put my professional qualifications to good use for my community, but also to make sure that parts of our community that haven't been heard are being heard. And, you know, as far as how I can continue to grow, you know, what's been great about this campaign is really trying to listen to people from all different sides of the political spectrum. And the way that I want to continue growing is to continue to challenging myself to reach out to people that might have diverse viewpoints that I might not agree with, because I always learn so much from those conversations. And though they can be hard at first to initiate, they bring about just incredible growth in terms of your understanding of an issue.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. That's all the time we have. And I really appreciate you both joining us today. For everybody viewing, if you would like more information on them, I'll be dropping their website URLs in the chat. So once again, thank you both for joining us, and we'll be moving on to our next segment.
Thank you very much for your very intelligent questions. I appreciate being able to be involved today.
Absolutely. All right, so next up, I'll be handing it off to my co-moderator, Stephen Cooper. He'll be speaking to the candidates for the state legislative representative. We'll be ready to get started in just a moment.